So I've never heard about men getting pregnant. I've never heard about this argument. It must be some part of what you call the far left that is so minuscule that I, who am...
No, Jane.
What?
It's not minuscule, and I'm sorry, you can't throw this back on us. I assume it's because you are locked into media that just never wants anyone in their audience to know anything sketchy about the
Bill Maher didn't just challenge Jane Fonda's woke rhetoric, he torched it with surgical precision. Fonda entered the studio expecting another cozy, like-minded echo chamber, where her every word would be met with nods and applause. What she got instead? A verbal minefield. Maher, ever the unapologetic iconoclast, came armed with sharp questions, dry wit, and zero patience for political posturing. It wasn't just a clash of ideas, it was a full-on ideological showdown. And trust me, it was anything but random.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that is...
No, you know this about California. Come
No,
on.
I don't.
Well,
I'm sorry, I don't.
You've never heard that California is overtaxed and overregulated? That we are a one-party state where there's sort of no checks on that sort of extreme leftism. And that, what do you think?
I don't for a minute consider California a state that is extreme leftist. Not at all, not any way.
Well, that shows where your politics.
Whoa, there's a lot to unpack here. Jane Fonda isn't just living in the Hollywood bubble, she is the bubble. Decades of red carpets, camera flashes, standing ovations, and cocktail party activism have insulated her from the grit and grind of the real world. Somewhere along the way, she started confusing sound bites for substance and slogans for serious thought. In her reality, performative outrage replaces nuanced dialogue and virtue signaling earns more applause than actual solutions. But then came Maher armed with that signature blend of irreverence and razor-sharp realism. He wasn't there to nod along. He brought a truth-tipped needle, ready to burst that bloated balloon of celebrity self-importance. And when he did, Fonda got a brutal reminder that outside the Hollywood hills, people face consequences, not just applause. This wasn't just a conversation, it was a collision. And trust me, you'll want a front row seat for the fallout.
They became the birthers, they became the Tea Party. There's about a third of this country that's very hard right. Of course they love Trump. When he left office, he had an approval rating of 34%. So he really only had those people. Why is he now like tied? Because the other part of the coalition are people who, they don't really like him that much. They just think the far left has gone so nutty on so many issues.
That's what they're being told.
That's what they...
By people like you.
Because it's true. You think the far left does nothing crazy?
Oh, I'm sure.
You can almost hear the tension humming in the air, like the quiet just before a thunderstorm. Maher and Fonda, both seasoned in the spotlight, are gearing up for a verbal showdown, and the energy is thick with anticipation. It's that charged moment when you know something's about to erupt. Then comes the twist. In a single breath, Jane Fonda tries to call out Maher for suggesting the far left is spiraling out of control. But without skipping a beat, she literally confirms it herself, acknowledging that, yes, they might actually be going a little nuts. You can't make this up. It's political irony at its most entertaining. The kind where the accusation turns into an accidental confession. Deny, deflect, then boom, walk right into your opponent's point. Maher sees it. The audience catches it. And Fonda? She's mid-freefall into the very narrative she set out to dismantle. Buckle up.
What do you mean when you say far left?
I mean, I could give you a million examples.
Yeah, well, give me one.
Okay, the NAACP.
You think the NAACP is far
Could I
left?
finish my sentence?
Yes.
You asked me for an example.
Yeah.
Travel advisory, you know, that's like the State Department does to go to, I'm sure when you went to Vietnam, they were advising you not to. There's a war on.
I didn't talk to them. I don't have no.
I know, but you know a travel advisory.
Yeah.
Today we have them for very dangerous countries.
Yeah.
Don't go to North Korea. Don't go to Iran.
Yeah.
You know where they issued a travel advisory for black people not to go?
Yeah.
Florida. Every day there's stories like that that just makes people roll their eyes and go, are you people nuts? Even if they don't matter that much. I don't think one person listened to this and thought, I can't go to Florida. But they just suggest something to the average person, which I completely understand, which is, wow, do you people ever find anything that's real?
Woke isn't just a person or a passing trend. It's evolved into a full-blown ideology. One that doesn't just influence culture, politics, and entertainment. It saturates them. It creeps into language, reshapes how people express themselves, and polices what they're even allowed to think out loud. This isn't about inclusivity anymore. It's about conformity wrapped in the illusion of virtue. At its core, it's an ideology that wages war on common sense. It bends science into activism, edits history for emotional comfort, and treats objective facts as optional. Logic? Offensive. Nuance? Dangerous. Emotion? Now crowned as the ultimate truth. That's the real danger, not the slogans, but the slow dismantling of reason itself. It's not about lifting everyone up. It's about gaining control through moral intimidation. Maher brushed up against that truth, hinted at it with his usual wit, but stopped just shy of really digging in. Maybe he's walking the line to keep his liberal base engaged. But someone needs to say it loud and clear.
Men can get pregnant, that kind of stuff. And I understand that a trans woman can get pregnant. That's different than a man getting pregnant. Insist on blurring that line as if that's some sort of reasonable social cause, as opposed to just being for having full rights, respect, and protection for trans.
Let's be clear now. Trans women cannot get pregnant. That's not bigotry. That's biology. And Bill Maher hits the mark when he says the trans movement would be far more powerful if it focused on protecting rights and freedoms, rather than trying to overwrite scientific reality. There's a crucial difference between asking for respect and demanding that society abandon reason to validate an ideology. When the conversation shifts from inclusion to insisting that men can give birth or that gender has zero connection to biological sex, it stops being about equality and starts becoming a credibility crisis. These extremes don't unite. They alienate. And they push away people who might have stood in solidarity. The real progress comes from championing individual liberty, safeguarding dignity, and creating space for open, honest dialogue. But when the movement resorts to shaming dissent, policing language, and punishing thought crimes, it shuts the door on the very empathy and understanding it claims to seek, and invites backlash instead of change.
About men getting pregnant. I've never heard about this argument. It must be some part of what you call the far left that is so minuscule that I, who am...
No, Jane,
What?
It's not minuscule, and I'm sorry, you can't throw this back on us. I assume it's because you are locked into media that just never wants anyone in their audience to know anything sketchy about the...
And that right there was the hammer blow. Jane Fonda tried to pivot faster than a politician caught mid-scandal with a live mic. One moment, she's passionately defending the far left, and the next, she's pretending she's never even heard the argument that men can get pregnant. Seriously, Jane? That line's been plastered across woke talk shows, echoed through college lecture halls, and repeated endlessly across social media like some sort of ideological chant. You don't get to act like it's news. Then, realizing she'd talked herself into a rhetorical corner, she scrambled for cover, claiming that the woke left is just a tiny, irrelevant sliver of the Democratic Party. But Maher wasn't having it. Not for a second. With one perfectly timed comeback, he popped the illusion like a balloon, pointing out what so many are thinking: this isn't fringe anymore. It's become mainstream rhetoric. That moment didn't just reveal Fonda's deflection. It exposed the entire game. The spin, the selective memory, and the desperate attempt to airbrush over uncomfortable truths in real time on live camera.
I mean, I don't know. I read two papers, and maybe I don't. I should watch Fox News.
No,
I guess.
I don't watch. That's too far. But you don't have to. I'm not going to torture you.
And that's how the conversation slowly unraveled, ending not with a bang, but with Jane Fonda practically waving the white flag. Backed into a corner and clearly uneasy, she tossed out a half-joking line: Maybe I should have watched more Fox News. But let's be honest, that wasn't just a quip. That was a moment of accidental clarity. A quiet admission that, for years, she's been sealed inside a perfectly curated echo chamber. Her Hollywood bubble, comfortable, predictable, and endlessly affirming, had kept her insulated from the raw, unfiltered debates playing out across the country. While she floated in a sea of standing ovations and activist talking points, the rest of the world was having a very different conversation at kitchen tables, on social media, and yes, even on news networks she had written off entirely. Maher didn't attack her. He just opened the blinds. And for a split second, she saw what lay outside, a reality far more complex, far less filtered, and light years away from the one she thought she understood.
The history of this country was police who were all too willing to shoot black people. So defund the police, though, was not a good idea. And you know who mostly didn't think it was a good idea was black people, because they want police in their neighborhoods, probably more than we need them in.
And that, right there, is the fundamental flaw with woke culture. It runs on emotional impulse, not thoughtful introspection. The loudest voices are often the least reflective. They don't pause to ask, where does this lead? They just charge ahead, swept up in whatever social crusade is trending, until the narrative shifts. Then suddenly, it's radio silence or complete denial that they ever shouted those slogans in the first place. Take defund the police. Just a few years ago, it was the rallying cry, painted on streets, chanted in protests, amplified across social feeds. Even some in the black community embraced it as a bold, moral stance. But now, reality has arrived like a cold slap. Violent crime spiked. Vulnerable neighborhoods became even more unsafe. And ironically, those same communities are the ones now calling most urgently for a stronger police presence. It's a harsh truth. When activism becomes performance and virtue signaling replaces reason, the very people these movements claim to fight for often end up paying the highest price.
Republicans tried to catch the Democrats with this, and they put this on, they brought it up in Congress.
Yeah.
And all the Democrats voted against it. The Democratic politicians were not for defunding the police. It's that radical fringe that has captured a lot of the media, academia, some of these cultural institutions that are not liberal anymore by old school liberalism. The ACLU is all about free speech. They don't really believe in it anymore. They believe, in one of their chief people who is trans said, I will die on this hill of banning.
Absolutely, Maher nails it. The woke left hasn't just joined the Democratic Party, it's taken the wheel. What was once a fringe movement has morphed into the loudest, most dominant voice in the room, steering the conversation, setting the rules, and policing every word spoken. They decide what's acceptable to say, what's off limits, and who gets cast out for stepping out of line. Meanwhile, the so-called moderates, the traditional liberals who once championed open debate, are either too afraid to speak up or too weary to fight. Many remain silent, not because they agree, but because they fear the consequences, being branded a bigot, a sellout, or worse. And those who do speak up? They risk everything. Smear campaigns, public shaming, career cancellations. In extreme cases, even threats to their safety. It's no longer about progress or equality. It's about strict adherence to a constantly shifting moral code. Maher's point hits hard. If the Democratic Party doesn't regain its balance and reject the tyranny of its extremes, it won't just lose elections, it'll lose its soul.
Voters say U.S. can't repair severe divisions. And they went into the fact that 5 years ago, even during the pandemic and during the George Floyd protests, even then, people thought, well, we are going to get through this. And now they seem to be on the page of, it's not going to happen. What do we do? Did you see the story?
Yeah, and I think what's new about this moment, one of my teachers and friends outside me like to say this, we aren't divided, we are being divided. That's right. By companies for profit, okay? And we have our divisions, we always have.
I have to push back here, division didn't just happen. It wasn't some accidental byproduct of modern politics. The far left, particularly the woke faction, thrives on outrage and polarization because it gives them leverage. Outrage is their fuel, and division is their strategy. They don't engage in dialogue, they issue decrees. The moment you step outside their approved script or question even a sliver of their worldview, you're branded a heretic, labeled, shamed, silenced, or shoved into digital exile. This isn't about progress or inclusivity anymore. It's about ideological conformity, enforced through moral intimidation. We've watched people lose careers, friendships, reputations, not for hate speech, but for voicing a reasonable disagreement or asking the wrong question. That's not what tolerance looks like. That's not liberalism. It's soft authoritarianism wrapped in hashtags and hollow virtue. Until the left is willing to have real conversations, to hear dissent without reaching for the pitchforks, unity will stay a buzzword with no substance. After all, you can't build bridges when one side keeps lighting the match.
You, on your phone, you ordered a yoga mat or something. Your algorithm figured out you're a liberal. Then your neighbor looked up a truck, you're a conservative. And from that day forward, you got different information every day and nobody sent a notice. And so now you literally think your neighbor is insane because how could they possibly think this stuff? But if you put your phone next to their phone, you're in different algorithmic universes, and that is brand new and very dangerous.
For once, I actually agree with Van Jones on this one. We desperately need...
For once, I actually find myself agreeing with Van Jones, and that's a rare moment these days. What we desperately need on our social media platforms is what I'd call a converging universe, a digital space where different opinions aren't just tolerated, but actively encouraged to collide and spark real conversations. Right now, algorithms act like overprotective digital babysitters, feeding us a steady diet of content that flatters our existing beliefs and shields us from anything uncomfortable or opposing. That's not enlightenment, it's intellectual isolation. If we truly want to restore meaningful dialogue in this country, we have to expose ourselves to ideas that challenge us, frustrate us, and yes, even make us uncomfortable. The left needs to genuinely understand what the right is saying, and the right needs to hear what the left actually believes, not through clip sound bites, viral outrage clips, or memes designed to trigger, but through honest, nuanced conversations. Because until social platforms stop trapping us inside these ideological echo chambers, we'll keep mistaking comfort for truth, and that's a dangerous trap. The moment we confuse familiarity with understanding, we stop growing. Only by stepping out of these curated bubbles and confronting uncomfortable realities can we hope to bridge divides and engage with the messy, complicated world we actually live in.